Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 28th City Council work session. Excited to see everyone. We will now turn it over to Mr. Manager to talk about the Virginia Peninsula Community College update. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Council. Our first presentation is from Virginia Peninsula Community College. They are here to share data about the status of the college and their impact on the community, as well as a few brief notes about future projects and initiatives. Okay. Want to take it from the top one more time?
We'll now turn it over to the city manager.
Now that we have the rehearsal finished. So good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. Everybody can hear me okay, I take it now? Thank you. Our first presentation is from Virginia Peninsula Community College. They're here to share data about the status of the college and their impact on the community, as well as a few brief notes about future projects and initiatives. President, Dr. Tawana Porter Brannon, has a brief presentation, and then we'll introduce today's presenters.
Thank you very much, City Manager Archer. Can you hear me well? Awesome. All right, thank you. Mr. Mayor and City Council, we appreciate this opportunity to share with you and the great folks of the City of Newport News just some of the things that the college has been up to for the past year or so and the direction that we're headed in. Before I turn it over to two members of my executive cabinet, I would like to make a brief presentation to one of the members of City Council. The college has an opportunity every year to award an honorary associate's degree. And this was the first time in the four opportunities that I've had since being president to actually honor someone with the honorary degree. And so, as you may be aware, the mission of our college says we change lives and transform communities. And I take that very, very seriously. I take that very literally, and it's something that's really important to me. And so when we have an opportunity to give an honorary degree, one of the things we ask ourselves is who or whom meets the mission of the college? Who is demonstrably taking on actions that change lives and transform communities? And so this year we had an opportunity to identify someone who did that. So I have to give you a little bit of data just so that you know there is methodology to this and it's not just a popularity contest. Because I heard someone said, hey, how do I get one of those? And I wanted to be clear that we actually do look at metrics and data in order to say, is this person changing lives and transforming communities? And so, as you may know, thank you, sir, one of the focuses of my administration has been on serving vulnerable communities that were underserved by the college, and asking ourselves, what could we do to change lives and transform communities? And so since 2021, we've been focused on Southeast Newport News as an area that could best benefit from higher education and access to high quality short-term training. So I'm going to say this other part really fast because it's probably data you already know. But when you look at the Southeast Newport News community, what you will see is a community of hardworking folks who could best benefit from advanced training and education. Folks who are working, but they're working too many jobs, right, just to make ends meet. And so we looked at that community as an opportunity to connect the thousands of residents in Southeast Newport News to the thousands of job vacancies that are available just within a 5-mile distance of the Southeast Newport News community. And we started looking at how well is the college doing at connecting those communities. And what I found was that we're not doing good enough. And so I received a phone call one day from a gentleman and his partner that said, we're trying to help folks apply for financial aid and apply for benefits. We hear the system's giving away scholarship money. We want to connect people to those benefits. And I thought to myself, they are out of their mind. Right? There are two people sitting alone in Southeast Newport News trying to change lives and transform communities. And I had no idea how it was going to work. It was one of these grassroots initiatives that was pretty immediately, overwhelmingly a success. in the Southeast Newport News area. And in the last few years, what we have seen is over thousands of people, not just from Southeast Newport News, but then Hampton, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, people from around this region who have been displaced by the pandemic, who are working, but they're working too many jobs, people who don't have higher education or training, who could benefit from an opportunity. And hundreds of those folks have come to our college, and they have sat through classes that are 6 weeks to 16 weeks, and hundreds of people in this community have been able to earn certificates in CDL, commercial driver's license, allied health, EKG, phlebotomy, HVAC technician, facilities maintenance, and they are going to work. They're doubling their income. They're doubling their income. And what we find most interesting, what I find most interesting, is I'm looking at people who were formerly incarcerated, who are now small business owners, and hiring others who were formerly incarcerated. They're putting other people to work. And when I think about our mission, change lives and transform communities, that's the kind of work that we're called to do. And so when we thought about who's out there walking the talk and helping us connect more people to those kinds of opportunities that transform their lives and their children's lives, we realized that there's one person who's always at the table, always at the meeting, right? Always pulling folks together, and that was Councilman John Ely. So Mr. Ely, on behalf of our college board, the State Board for Community Colleges, and the hundreds of individuals who are able to get high demand, high wage employment, who are able to change the economic mobility of their families, because you stepped up in those communities, you took the opportunities to them, you validated the value of higher education and training, and you gave value to the work that we do at the college, and you brought trust into communities that had been let down previously. We thank you for what you've done, not just for the community, but what you continue to do. And on behalf of my college and my executive cabinet, I'd like to present to you formally the Honorary Associate's Degree of Humane Letters from VPCC.
John, stand right there. All right, 1 and 2. Good photo.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the Virginia Peninsula Community College Vice President for Finance and Administration, Mr. Steve Carpenter. We did this by accident. We did not intend to match today, but we're just so in tune that it turned out that way. Who will be presenting to you along with Vice President Todd Estes, who is in charge of workforce innovation. He didn't get the early morning memo about the color, but I'd like to ask them to come and share a few updates with you about the college, where we are now and where we're going in the future. So please help me welcome VP Carpenter and Estes.
All right, thank you very much. And I actually spent more than half my career working here for the great city of Newport News, so it's nice to be back and home. Many different faces, but it does still feel like home, so thank you very much. So I want to jump in. We're going to move the information fairly quickly, but being cognizant of your time, but feel free to stop us and ask questions along the way. So I want to start out with just some enrollment numbers. The number that you're looking at on your left is unduplicated head count for credit classes. That's the normal student when you think of someone going to college to get a 2-year degree or transfer to a 4-year. That's what you think of in this number. Unduplicated simply means that whether they're taking 3 courses, 4 courses, or even different programs, they're only counted one time. So 8,676 students, more than 2,000 of those are from the city of Newport News. So thank you for that. On the other side of the screen, the 1530, those are our non-credit students, are what you traditionally call workforce students, students that are here at the college to maybe HVAC, welding, things where you can move a little more quickly within a few weeks or maybe a few months, you can earn a credential. So jump real quickly over to our dual enrollment overview. And your numbers might be drawn to the purple Newport News there, and you see a smaller number from the 1920 school year to the 22-23 school year. It doesn't mean that you shrunk that much. This is a percentage of our entire dual enrollment population. So whereas the city of Newport News, the Newport News school system, I believe did go down just a little bit, but not to that extent. What happened is the other schools kind of boosted their programs, and so your piece of the pie got a little bit smaller, but you didn't go down as much as it might appear on the screen here. But you can see overall, we've had a fairly significant increase in our number of dual enrollment students, and specifically 27% increase from 1920 to the 22-23 school year. In the center here, you're looking at, again, at the workforce that we talked about a minute ago. We've had a 24% increase in the number of students taking workforce courses at the college. And not only do we have that many more students taking classes, but those students are taking more courses. So the number on the bottom there, the 32%, we had a 24% increase just in the numbers of students, but then they're taking more. So they might take a welding class and then come back for a higher level welding class, and then another level welding class. So the number continues to increase when it comes to workforce. And then you hear that in the community, how popular workforce is now. The number on the far right, you can see is the smallest number on the screen, but it's something that we are extremely proud of. 7% does not look like a very big number. This is our regular credit students, the regular college student when you think about someone going to college. 7% doesn't look like a big number until you think for the past 10 years, that's been a negative number. So for the first time in more than 10 years, we've seen an increase in our spring to spring enrollment. And that's just in 1 year's time, increased 7%. And so we're really, really excited about that number. Not a huge number, but again, it shows growth. And it's something we've worked very, very hard on. Our marketing and outreach to prospective students, the college has done a tremendous amount of work to do that outreach, and it shows it is paying off. Talking real quickly about retention and completion. Getting the students in is great, but the goal really is to hold on to them and get them through to completion, right? That's the real goal, is to get them through to completion. So the first number on your left here shows from fall to spring, typically you have students that might fall out during that time. Life happens, things come up, and they start a program and they have to drop out during, between the spring and the fall and spring semesters, and they go off to do something else. Well, we've seen a 2% increase in 1 year in the number of students from fall to spring being retained. So that's, again, increase. It's a great thing, something we're really proud of. The center number there shows a 3-year graduation rate increase of 3%. So that means a student that starts a program and finishes that credit class within 3 years, an increase in the number of students within 1 year by 3%. So again, really, really positive thing. And then, of course, we talked about the popularity of workforce. You see an 18% increase in the number of workforce students that are increasing in 1 year's time. So again, really, really excited about that number. I said I spent a lot of my career here. I spent much of it in the budget department. Lisa Cipriano, your fearless budget director, will like these next few slides because they talk about the impact that the college is having on the community, and obviously the students first, but what impact that makes to the community. So this is an interesting slide here, and don't want to take away anything from our 4-year partners. They do great work. All the 4-year schools within the state, they do great work, but this statistic shows us that only 57% of the students that graduate a 4-year institution in Virginia remain in the state and are employed in the state. They go back to other states or they move out to wherever it might be for employment. At Virginia Peninsula Community College, 78% of our students graduate, stay right here in the state, and overwhelmingly right here in our community, and contribute back to our economy. So how do we know that they're contributing to our economy? Well, you can look at the next slide. This shows that just over 75% of students that transfer from our school to a 4-year are employed within 18 months. Now, 18 months is kind of like a standard number that you look at. So many of these students are still in college, right? They leave us with a 2-year degree a lot of times, or transfer to a 4-year. So 18 months later, many of them are still in college trying to finish up. But again, more than 75% of them are employed. The career and technical education students, 83.1% of those employed within 18 months. And then the final one, again, stands to reason. If you get a welding degree or an HVAC degree, there's somebody waiting to snatch you up pretty quickly. So 84.5%, nearly 85% of those students are employed within 6 months of completing their certification. So I'm going to turn it over to Todd real quick now to talk a little bit more about the impact that the college is having on students in the community.
Thanks, Steve. And real quickly, to continue that line of thought about the value to the community, I think we all understand or we believe that education and training is a benefit to our students, our community, but can you put a dollar figure on that? And as a matter of fact, you can't. And so we commissioned a study, an economic impact study recently, and want to highlight just a couple of data points from that study. So just in our operations alone, so we're a large business within our community. Just our operational spending, we're nearly $30 million a year. So that's of significance, and we want to speak to that. And then our student spending at about 5.5, but I'll draw your eye to the alumni impact. So you see the alumni impact, and this is really important, and it's in direct relationship to what Steve just told you, that our graduates stay here. And so that $211 million annual economic impact is a result of the increased wages and the increased productivity of our graduates that stay within our region. So that's a really important number and really helps us quantify the impact we have on the region. So as public educators, we have two primary revenue streams, right? So we have student tuition and fees, and then we have state allocation. So we're a public provider. So both of those groups want to know that they're getting a positive return on investment. And so that student, fortunately, we can say absolutely, and we can say with confidence is based on this study. So based on this study, for every $1 a student spends, they receive $7.50 in return. So that's almost a 25% return on their investment, which is pretty darn solid. And then as a taxpayer, I'm a taxpayer, and so we all have to be good stewards of tax dollars, and we have to understand that the dollars that we're spending on our operations have an appropriate return on that investment. And so based on this study, we found that for every public dollar that was spent at BPCC, a return of $3.40 was received. So we feel really good about citing our return on investment to those two groups. So just to highlight a couple of items around facilities and projects, and I'll go through these relatively quickly and we can entertain questions afterwards. But we are in the midst of rebuilding our performing arts theater. So we had a relatively large structural issue back during the pandemic about 3 years ago. We are very excited that that's being rebuilt, and that will be an asset to the community very soon. The Center for Excellence in Childhood Development, so that happens to be here in the great city of Newport News. And so we will have a presence right down here in Marshall Ridley in that early childhood center very soon. Our new Skilled Trade Center, of which this city has been an incredible partner. So the Newport News and Newport News EDA has been a real and substantive partner in that project, and we're really excited about how that's coming together, and we expect that to be available in 2025. I was bragging on that just this morning, and bragging on Newport News, by the way, in another meeting. So the Student Success and Campus Administration Building, so we are getting ready to replace some outdated and very old original buildings, so that they will come online soon with the help of Mr. Carpenter. And then we have in the works a healthcare center, a new healthcare trade center, training center that will also be in the city of Newport News. So just a few of the projects, of which we have many going on at the college, but you'll see the top two. You'll see healthcare and you'll see maritime. So both of those industries are pretty near and dear to the hearts of this region. Really important that we are contributing and doing our part in supporting the workforce. So you'll see a new LPN program. That's a gap in our current training programs, our education programs, and so we'll be filling that gap very soon. The maritime related training, so that with the Southeast Newport News Center, that will help us expand dramatically in that space. And then you'll see the other areas in IT, the dental hygiene, also a healthcare theme and expansion in sport in that area. That one really at our HT campus up in Williamsburg. And then just highlighting a couple of other initiatives. So employment. So you see the top bullet, the Center for Career Internship and Transfer Services. It's critically important that we not only train and educate our folks, that we make sure that they have access to the careers that they need, right, for family sustaining wages in our region. And we're also supporting our employer partners. So we're looking to invest more in that space. And so that is an effort we're working on there. We've already touched on the Healthcare Training Center and then the Educational Programming Innovation Center. So that is an investment in our IT technology space. So we're looking to do more in the short-term accelerated training space for IT and technology, as well as professional development for other educators within the region. So we're really excited about that initiative as well. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
At this time, do we have any questions?
Sorry, would you tell them what that building is, Todd?
So this is the new building that, and Mr. Carpenter knows even better than I do, this is the new building that we are looking forward to replace those outdated buildings I just mentioned.
So yeah, we had 3 buildings that were original to the college, and they're right in this area right now. Those are about to be torn down later this calendar year. And this is the Interstate 64, right on, this is the back side of the building. Interstate is right here on the other side, so you'll be able to see this brand-new, beautiful building as you drive by the interstate every day.
And that's in Hampton or Newport News?
This is out.
Yeah, I'm just asking the question.
You'll also see our brand-new workforce training center.
From 664 when you're coming across the Monitor Merry-Go-Round.
I just wanted it for the record. Thank you.
I
I just
the training center way before you see this.
track it. Thank you, Councilman Long.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. Great seeing those numbers increasing year over year. For the child care development new piece for education, what is the anticipated number of the first cohort class that y'all are anticipating being able to start getting child care workers into the industry? Because that was one of the issues that came up last week when we were talking about child care needs, and child care workers are the biggest need for helping with the capacity. So where do we think in anticipation of how many students will enter into this original class?
I can tell you, yeah. There's an accelerated class that is scheduled. There's an accelerated class that is scheduled to start in a couple of weeks. And the first group of students, it's 10 students that are going to go through the first accelerated class. And then after that, what will be interesting is we're working with our traditional age students, but also high school dual enrollment students, so that they will be part of the second class. And so that's a really strategic way to double the enrollment, is to be able to get those high school students who are interested in working immediately after so seniors who are looking to work immediately after high school, and to lower the cost of college education. But the first group, the accelerated group, is going to start in 2 weeks, and the first cohort is 10.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I had a question, and it was similar along the same lines, but I had another tier to it. As I was looking at slide 7, it had all of the public schools that are on the peninsula, Hampton Public Schools, Newport News, Pocosin, Williamsburg, James City County, and York. So is it safe to say that VPCC services the peninsula and TCC more so on the south side? Or do we have students that travel across the water?
You know, it's interesting. So this is dual enrollment only.
Okay,
So
that's
this should
dual,
only
okay.
be our public high school students, but we also have homeschool students as well, and certain private schools who take advantage of our dual enrollment. Oh, thank you. Oh, absolutely, thank you. So what you're looking at is dual enrollment public school information.
Okay, that's what
And so it is only the peninsula, and TCC should only be serving the public schools there. I will share, though, one of the things that's very interesting, you can't see it here, but when we break down this number, so Mr. Estes mentioned that a little over 2,000 students that we have at the college come from Newport News. What's also in that number is another 2,000 students that come from across the globe, which is very interesting. And so they come from outside of the peninsula, Northern Virginia. They come from out of state. They also come from the Rappahannock footprint, the Tidewater footprint, and really around, like when we look, they come from all over the country and all over the globe. So it is interesting to see how many, the second largest percentage of students at our college don't live on the peninsula, which is an interesting phenomenon, and it's the fastest growing population at our college is folks who don't live on the peninsula. So that's an interesting, we can't figure out why, because they come from everywhere, but it is interesting that we're getting students to come to our college who don't live in the state or the country.
And with programs like the early childhood program that's high school students take, whether New Horizons or even in Portsmouth, they do have a program over there. Are they being recruited for this new child development center
Yes.
opportunity?
Definitely, and not just for this one. I mean, they're an active part, and Mr. Estes mentioned that, like, workforce development is the greatest challenge in the nation. And so colleges, especially community colleges, are in a really unique position, right, where we can actually recruit at the high school level. And so just strategically as a workforce initiative, we're looking more and more, so our EMS programs, some of our allied health programs, we're looking at the high school population as that untapped market where we can develop talent for the workforce. So we're looking at them for early childhood education, but really for any of the programs, including which of our short-term credential programs they could benefit from. But we're looking at high school students strategically because the workforce is desperate for talent, and they're there's less temperament for waiting 2 years to get the talent. Or if you can get an associate degree student immediately and then pay for them to get their bachelor's degree, that's also very inviting for our employers. But I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, but we're definitely looking at high school students as a strategic enrollment and recruitment initiative.
And just to add to that, Dr. Brandon, we've been working with, so y'all know, we've been working with the high school students too, and we have a list of 146 students from Newport News. So our What's Next people have been going into the high schools because we didn't want to wait till they get 23, 24. We wanted to reach them at an earlier market. So we have a long waiting list of high school students that want to go into the workforce. So we definitely cover it on Virginia Peninsula side as well as what we're doing.
Thank you. Do we have any questions before, just mindful of time?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think my bias always shows when I see the VPCC folks because I somewhere fall in those economic impact numbers for sure, being an alum, and I owe so much to the college. I think when I got on the board, I think, Dr. Brennan, you had been on maybe a year, and I can speak from personal experience and just knowing that you have done a phenomenal job in your capacity, and you've brought on some amazing staff as well. And so I know you didn't, there wasn't really an ask at the end, but the charge for me, and even when I was on the board, Hampton shouldn't beat us in anything. So in regards to seeing the students, especially taking full advantage of the dual enrollment, and to see so many Hampton students graduate, because I was at the graduation, of course, that is an opportunity for us, and I hope that we could charge and work with the school system to make sure that we are doing the best that we can to make sure our students are taking full advantage of that opportunity. So I just want to say thank you for all that you all are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
Thanks to the City Council for your support.
Thank you.
Our second presentation for this afternoon is the General Assembly session update. Now that the General Assembly and the Governor have passed the state budget and completed work on the 2024 legislative programs, we have with us this afternoon our Intergovernmental Affairs Manager, Jerry Wilson, who will provide us with an update. Thank you, Jerry.
Good afternoon. I'm going to fly through this, so because I know some of it you've heard before. First, start with the budget. One of the big things that was a big deal was that there was the final budget included a 3% pay raise for teachers. If the city does not, or the school system chooses not to do that, then as long as they give at least a 1.5%, that money would be prorated. Okay, I want to pick this up a little bit. How's that? Is that better? Okay, so it's got to be at least 1.5%, but then it would be prorated. The next thing that was included in the final budget was the money for the state share of a Newport News downtown housing initiative. The only change to this was the fact that it now includes housing infrastructure as well, not just straight up housing, which is good because it includes all the things you need to make housing work. And a lot of this is going to be through the Secretary of Finance's office. So there's some words in here that are kind of like, what is that exactly going to mean? We will work that out with the Secretary of Finance as we move forward. Next thing, big budget win, was getting the state to put in the backfill of money from the general fund to offset their elimination of the state sales tax on groceries and personal items. Just to give you an idea, this is about $4.2 million to the city, so it would have been 2 cents on the real estate tax had the state not come up with the money to put that back in our budget. Also, the derelict structures fund was increased and by $7 million each year. Of that $7 million, $2.4 million is earmarked for the cities who are port host localities, Newport News, Portsmouth, Norfolk, and that the increase in the port share of that went to 2.4, which is $900,000 more than previously committed to port host cities. So that was a win. There were a lot of other budget items to note that were good for us. One of them was the Military Community Infrastructure Grant Program, which we've been a big advocate for. There is $3 million in the final budget for that program. It is a match for DoD grants, and I believe the first year there was $5 million in the budget, of which I believe Newport News got the lion's share for our DSIP grant for Harwood's Mill improvement. Police HB 599, aid to local police departments went up $10 million each year across the state, so that won't be a lot of a bump, but it'll be a little bit of a bump. State aid to local public libraries increased $2.5 million. The PDC got an extra $25,000. Historic rehabilitation tax credit, the cap was increased to $7.5, which is good news because a lot of that, those are things that the folks use to rehab historic structures in Newport News. So we're glad about that. The COVA STEM Hub, which we had advocated for last year for $500,000 each year, retained that $500,000. So over the biennium, another $1 million for COVA STEM. JLab retained their $1.5 million each year, which is actually not as surprising as it sounds because there was a move to kind of pull away some of that JLab money. So their lobbyists went on overdrive and got it back. Achievable Dream had $500,000 each year. Soundscapes got $90,000. And the only one that was kind of not the greatest was Enterprise Zones received decreased funding. However, those programs are kind of like how many grants you get, what is asked for versus what goes in the budget. There's not necessarily a match there. So even though the funding did go down, it is possible that there will still be enough in there to cover all the requests. Still not good news, but not as bad as it sounds. Legislation-wise, just a quick set. I thought this, 3,595 things introduced during the year. Of that, only about 2,300 of those were actually bills, but still, it's fairly typical year to year. It doesn't matter, 60-day session, 45-day session. I'm telling you, if you give us a 15-day session, we would still have 2,500 bills a year. But of those, about 20% got vetoed. Our bill requests, the Workers' Compensation Act, removing that limiting date, that was very successful, passed overwhelmingly, both chambers, governor signed it. The other request that was the minimum threshold for the non-judicial sale of tax delinquent properties also passed by very good margins and was signed. We did not have patrons for the requests on private dam and lake remediation. There were some other good legislative wins this year. The Military Center Community Zone program that we had requested was approved, which will allow the city to create a military-centered community zone in the downtown area, anywhere where there's a significant daily presence of military, even though there may not be an installation, which will allow us to give them some incentives. It's very similar to what you would do in a defense community zone or a enterprise zone type of incentive. The Community Revitalization Fund, they expanded the use of that for all localities. Originally, that program had only been available to Richmond. There was a bill that extends the enterprise zones by 4 years in addition to any other renewals, so that was good news. There was a fairly significant expansion of vacant building registration. No longer does it just have to be vacant for a certain amount of time. It can also be a building that meets the definition of criminal blight or a building where someone who is living who is not the person who should be living there. And then, of course, there was a bill that raised the local elected salaries to $2024. Still not quite what the counties get, but much better than what it was. There were a lot of vetoes, of which you've probably heard a lot about. The sales and use tax for local school construction being probably one of the most disappointing because that one passed the chambers with mostly overwhelming support. I imagine that will be back, if not next year, the year after, or soon. There was some thought that that might end up in budget language, and it did not. The Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, enforcement by localities was vetoed, raising the minimum wage, recreational market for marijuana sales, skill games, assault ban weapons, all these bills were vetoed. On our policy positions, we had some good news, some okay news, some not great. Local authority on short-term rentals, there were not a ton of bills this year. The ones that did pass were fairly small. I think one had to do with accessory dwelling units and the use of them as short-term rentals. One had to do with whether or not, as a leasee, if you lease an apartment, there's nothing that will prohibit you now from also using your apartment as a short-term rental. One of the major bills on short-term rental got sent to the Housing Commission, so that was good news for us. Maintaining local revenue streams. We did not have any bills that passed this year that would eliminate or reduce or redirect our local revenues for BPOL and machinery and tools. That's always a battle every year. The Military Community Infrastructure Grant Program did end up getting $3 million in the budget. That was a win. And then, unfortunately, although there were not any bills that passed about the 1% for additional resources for school construction, there were a significant amount of dollars in the budget from the Literary Fund and also from gaming revenues that will go into the school construction grants that were not there before. So it's about $280 million the first year and $130 million from all sources the second year that'll be available for school construction grants. And I know I'm talking really, really fast, so slow me down if you need to or ask questions. But there were, unfortunately, the battle on unfunded mandates is probably one that we will never win. But there weren't as many this year as there have been in previous years. A couple of the small ones were things like you now have to give the first hour of FOIA. You can't charge for the first hour of FOIA. The expansions to some of the property tax exemptions for people who have, been killed in the line of duty or their spouses or their kids. Those are the kinds of things that continue to kind of, increase, and it's difficult to stand up and say that that's eating away local revenue. But I believe the General Assembly folks are starting to notice, and particularly in military-centric communities like ours, that, that's becoming a bigger and bigger share for real estate tax. And so I think they're starting to look at that. Economic and redevelopment incentive programs did well in the budget. Public safety and community violence intervention, there were some wins and losses. There was a lot of money put into things like the firearm intervention and prevention program and the SAFER program, and so there's a bunch of money there, but a lot of the bills that had to do with firearms in some way or another were vetoed. I believe there were 30 vetoed, 6 amended, and maybe 2 signed. So even the bill that just was asking for a study of the impact of gun violence on communities, which would have been a JLARC study, even that bill got vetoed. And then funding for road maintenance for port host cities is one of the legacy things that's in our package just about every year. It didn't go very far this year, but it took us many, many years to get some of the things we get. So this is one of those things you just kind of have to ask for. What's next? So between now and January 25, there's a lot that's going to happen, I think. Technically, the General Assembly has not adjourned. It's recessed, which means that they could come back. And there was a lot of discussion about whether or not they would come back to address the skill games issue. Opinions are widely varied. It wouldn't technically be another special session. It would be the one that they're in, although the rules for this session say that they may only do revenue bills. And there's nothing in the budget really that indicates that they would. And also, considering the governor's strong stance on the skill games issue, I think for them to want to come back and do anything about this, there would have to be something that they could offer him. So I don't know that I don't know that you'll see a special session or any legislation in this special session about this, but I could be wrong. That's just what my crystal ball says. There are interim meetings that have already begun. The JLARC is meeting, FOIA Council met today. They're going to continue to meet. There are 3 housing work groups, of which we are an active part every year. They've already started talking about trying to make the regulation of short-term rentals perhaps something that's part, or accessory dwelling units as something that's part of the annual or the comprehensive planning process. So there's a lot of things being bandied about this time of year. We also pay close attention to the Joint Commission on Technology and Science. Science, of course, always the money committees, finance and appropriations, and then there is a possibility that there will be a tax reform special commission, although it's been talked about, nothing specific has been scheduled as far as I have seen. The VML legislative policy committees will start meeting in late June, and will meet all through the summer. We will kind of begin, I hate to say it, but a process for how we put together the legislative package in July. You'll start seeing email about, hey, let's talk about the package for January. We try to always get the package done in early October so that gives our legislative delegation members an opportunity to review and file. They do have a pre-filing deadline this year of November 25th, which is a little bit sooner than usual, but it also starts in July, so a lot more time than last year. Last year, they gave themselves, I think, a week and a half to file bills. This year, they're giving themselves some more time. And then the possibility for planning some sort of a pre-session legislative event where we can talk to the delegation about what our priorities are and what their priorities are and try and see how those things fit together. Have some dates, maybe possibly hold on the calendar. So unless there's questions, I know that was a fast run through.
I'll jump in first. So I asked Alan and Jerry to put that event on the calendar. A lot of cities do it in Virginia, but if you look at our delegation, it's split right now, right? I think it's a 3-2 DR split, and I think we need to all come together. I think it's too hard to like call people individually and try to figure out who can be a patron, who can be a sponsor. So what we're going to do is this should be the first annual one, and we'll do it year after year. Is we'll bring everyone together, all parties, and talk about like the priorities of the city and see where we can meet consensus. So I appreciate the action on that and look forward to the dates. Do we have any questions or comments for Jerry? No, there are no dates yet for that event.
I just wanted to say, for the other budget items of note, the historic rehabilitation tax credit increase, Virginia First, oh, I'm sorry, thank you, John. Virginia First Cities was one of the lead advocates. We were really advocating for $10 million per project with no cap, mainly because when you look at that historic rehabilitation, it is so much more costly, and plus with the rising costs of construction. So we're still going to continue to push to move that needle on that, because that'll help more developers who want to come to our cities to use the historic tax credits. It will help us, in that area of development.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank Jerry publicly. I think we've all gotten accustomed to her hard work and dedication, and how really much of a good job that she does in keeping us updated. And so, Jerry, I really want to thank you for your diligence and all of your hard work. It makes our job so much easier. And I know you're kind of an old pro at it. But thanks so much. It really is noticed and appreciated. Thank you.
Do we have any other council comments? And Jerry, I'll just say I had a chance to go up to the GA, and everyone was like, "Oh, you have Jerry. She's the best. She's amazing." So thank you, especially for the amount of investment that for the Navy. You were an integral part of that. So we definitely appreciate you, and the Vice as well for whipping votes when they needed to get whipped up in Richmond. So we appreciate that as well. I think next up we have the Stony Run Park Master Plan.
Yes, I'm pleased to present you with the updated master plan for Stony Run Park. This concept plan is really meant to help guide future development of the park. It follows almost 2 years of dedicated work and extensive feedback from dozens of staff and hundreds of citizens and other stakeholders. Stony Run Park officially opened in 2003 following the completion of an initial master plan, which was adopted by City Council in 1998. Given the length of time that has elapsed since the creation of the first master plan, it was time to review and update the original concept to ensure it remained consistent with our citizens' expressed desires and needs. So at this time, Mr. Will Roche, Assistant Director for Parks and Recreation and Project Manager for the revised master plan, is here to provide an overview of the plan for you this afternoon. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good afternoon, members of council. Thank you for allowing me to come before you today and present the final draft version of the revised Stony Run Park Master Plan. If you'll allow me a brief, I'm going to get it. There's 3 things up here. No? Which one did I not hit? Yep, that was the one. Thank you. Brief project overview. I think everyone's aware. Stony Run Park, located in the city's North District behind the Denby Community Center off Warwick Boulevard. While the property is expansive, the predominant use over the past 19 years has been that of a baseball and softball complex, which annually hosts thousands of league participants and dozens of tournaments. Close up of the property, you can see outlined in yellow. You can see Denby Boulevard, Denby Community Center, Warwick Boulevard, Atkinson Boulevard towards the top of the property, Public Works Recycling Center, which has managed the landfill that you can see to the north of the pond, CSX Railroad, and Courthouse Green. The impetus for updating the Park Master Plan is the relative near-term access to the former landfill. The landfill closed in 1996, but did not formally enter post-closure until 2001. Entering post-closure kicked off a 30-year monitoring process by the Environmental Protection Agency and a 30-year prescriptive management process by the Department of Public Works. Due to the outstanding performance of Public Works, there is precedence for the EPA to consider ending the monitoring process early, which would enable public use of this property several years before the 2031 scheduled release date. The initial master plan, completed in 1998, reflected the public needs and desires of the population at that time. Many of these recreation resources continue to be relevant to our community members today, but in some cases, other priorities have risen to the top. Work on the revised master plan began in 2021 during the height of COVID and concluded last year. While the pandemic caused unique challenges, the planning process was thorough and culminates in the adoption by City Council, a request we will place before you on tonight's agenda. A consultant team consisting of A. Morton Thomas and Associate, WPL, and Getz was onboarded for the development of this project. The team had substantial experience in park design, and interestingly, WPL had experience in planning for alternate uses of landfill post-closure. The internal process was inclusive, involving 4 city departments and including feedback from several others during the planning process. Public engagement was robust. We started off with department stakeholder meetings, over 20 professionals representing several disciplines, including athletics, recreation, maintenance, visitor protection, and operation, in addition to planning and engineering. These professionals not only brought tremendous experience to bear, but were also able to summarize decades of public input received through the operation of the athletic fields. For the community, a community survey was available for approximately 45 days, promoted on social media, Newport News Now, the department website, local notifications to neighboring housing complexes. Options for completion were provided both online and paper responses, and 524 responses were received. Citizen stakeholder meetings were held with police, fire, local sports organizations, and community service organizations. And finally, a community open house was held, offering several display boards and engagement stations where people could discuss their wants and needs in detail. Revisiting our design concept, top program elements include walking and hiking trails, both paved and rustic. Honorable mention to playgrounds, both a top vote getter for the survey and top write-in candidate in the open input section. Additional parking and restrooms and restroom expansion was mentioned by every single existing user group. One of our lessons learned from 19 years of operation, the supporting infrastructure is insufficient for existing use, which causes us to proceed cautiously in planning new developments and additional supporting infrastructure. The grand reveal? Please keep in mind this is a concept plan. Much of the detail will be flushed out in the next phase when we go to detailed design. There are a few departures from the original plan. The volleyball, tennis courts, BMX track, fishing pond with circulating stream, and event area with seating did not garner strong community support. Gained were multi-use athletic fields, expansive natural areas, active hill engagement resources, a destination playground, and court games. Due to delay in access for the landfill that's in post-closure, it's reasonable to consider the development of the park in 2 phases, although there may be multiple projects in any given phase. Phase 1 is everything that can be built without encroaching upon the existing landfill, and phase 2 is all developments associated with landfill access. Graphically, it represents the park looking as such. You can see everything highlighted in yellow, with phase 1 would be to the right of the proposed athletic fields and down towards Denby Community Center, with phase 2 being all properties that are all resources built on the former landfill. More detailed phase 1 improvements would include both extending the existing parking and adding new, enlarging the existing restrooms and adding new, nature and asphalt trails, a destination playground. And by the way, in playground, we don't mean the typical playground that you see strewn throughout the city at 2 to 5 and 5 to 12 increments. Our kids are aging out of those playgrounds at 8 and 9 years old right now. The general desire is for playgrounds that more resemble American Ninja courses than they do playgrounds. Also desired are sports courts and multi-purpose fields. Phase 2 on the landfill, elevated overlook, natural gardens, art installation, a natural playground, hill engagement features, parking, and trails. The cost of implementation. Phase 1 could conceivably be broken down into multiple projects by grouping areas that are interdependent or of note. Now, there is no prioritization here. Everything in Phase 1, A to Z, is simply lumped together in what would be logical project breakdowns. But you can see the Phase 1 would total approximately $12 million. Phase 2, the landfill developments, which we would not have access to for several years yet, $8 million, for a total of just over $20 million at 2022 pricing. It is notable that we have received a grant from the Virginia Outdoor Foundation for $363,750 that will help us develop Phase 1D, the nature trails located in the southern section of the park. Well, the closest next to the Bethea Courts. Next steps, approval of the Stony Run.
Who is that grant from?
Virginia Outdoor Foundation.
Is it a state agency, a national agency? What is it?
It's a foundation. I believe it's a private foundation that's also co-supported through state funding.
Okay, thank you.
Next steps, the approval of the Stony Run Master Plan, which is on your agenda tonight. Initial funding appropriation, also on your agenda, which would help us engage an engineer to move forward with detailed design of the park, including basic construction-ready documents, wetland delineation, and land surveys. City Council approval of the Virginia Outdoor Foundation grant that I had just mentioned, and that will be something we hope to bring to you in the next couple of months, and advancement of Phase 1 projects. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, we'll turn over to Councilman Harris first, and then the Vice Mayor.
Well, I did have a quick question. Does this include lights on these fields where 19 is located near the pond?
The athletic fields?
Yes.
Yes, sir. It's our belief that those would be essential for the success of that feature.
Okay. And can you just describe or define multi-purpose fields for everybody?
Multi-purpose fields are rectangular fields that could be used for lacrosse, soccer, football, any rectangular field sport. Hurling, very popular in Ireland and Indianapolis.
And so based on the community surveys that were done, I think, was there a need, or not a need, excuse me, a desire for lacrosse fields?
One of our user groups included participants from CNU, which is apparently a rising sport in CNU. We had a women's lacrosse team, which mentioned growth in the local community, including what's been happening at CNU.
Gotcha. This work session, I'm thinking out loud. I mean, the youth football is huge here. And I don't know if there's an opportunity. I mean, I know it's multi-purpose, it's shared space,
Yes.
but maybe we should have something completely designated. I don't know. I'm thinking about the new middle school sports. Are they going to play at all the schools, or are they going to play at Todd? Maybe this is an opportunity to include something, but again, I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay. So I think the grant, this is the one that Delegate Simons brought forth with, I know this grant was set aside to help out with development of master plans that we've already kind of worked through. Is this the grant?
I don't believe so, Councilman Long. I believe this was a grant that was recommended by some of the city management. It was an agency that's long desired to support the community, and we found a good opportunity because they are a nature-based organization, and the ability is somewhat restricted for what they can support. They're looking for a piece of property that will stay naturalized, that they can also put a conservation easement, but provide public access. So there's a component of this master plan that fit that mold, and it was a good fit for both of our agencies.
But tonight, we're just going to be voting on the nature trail portion of it. So if there is a need to revise this plan in the future for like a football field, that's available, or?
I don't have the grant for you tonight. Tonight, I have the adoption of the master plan and an appropriation for funding for the master plan so we can move forward with detailed design. Now, detailed design is where we really flesh out a lot of those details about the fields, how many exactly, how they're configured, and the things that make it construction-ready design.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Do we have any further questions at this time? Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think next up we have comments, ideas, and suggestions. We'll start on this side, Vice Mayor, and go around.
Nothing.
Yeah, So after the Memorial Day celebration or event yesterday, I went to the American Legion, and one of the participants asked about the Virginia-Iraq Memorial, and I guess there's some confusion of maybe they're waiting for the city to get back with them. I know that you sent a letter at one point in time talking about it, but it just more or less someone needs to kind of close the gap with speaking to whomever is leading that effort.
So real quickly, Michael, I didn't know if you had anything to add on the Iraq Memorial that's being done there at the Virginia War Museum, but I think we did respond that we were supportive of that request. That was all our action that was needed at this time.
We have responded. Engineering has reviewed it, and we're waiting on feedback from them, particularly with fundraising as a part of their component. It may be a little long, but they have kind of the green light to move forward with at least sending us the final plan, and that would come to council for a review too.
Yeah, so really my comment was to make sure that gap is closed, the communication is closed, because they were under the impression they were waiting for city to respond back.
No, sir. I provided that earlier. So, hopefully, I can revisit it with them, but they have a written follow-up from us that pretty much gave them the green light to move forward with the plan, not with their construction. We still need to vet that through city engineering and Parks and Recreation, and perhaps council would like to look at their final design. It's changed a few times as far as the vision and the image of what they want to place in the park. So it would be good to have that final plan before we give them a final thumbs up or ask for more input from them.
Thank you.
I would like to, if we could, Mr. City Manager, for the, summertime is coming up, then maybe we can get with all our partners like Boys and Girls Club, Brooks Crossing, just have a list for parents of things to do with children for the summertime. I recently called down in Gross today, and they got an arts camp, which is amazing. I'm glad we have that. But what kind of disturbed me when I found out the camp is $630 for 6 weeks. I'm thinking, how could the people in our community afford a camp that's $630 for 6 weeks? That kind of concerned me a little bit. So we could maybe do like a sliding scale for citizens in the East End or throughout the city if they want to participate in that camp, because that's kind of steep. And what I did was call some camps like in New York and LA. Their camp's not even that much for 6 weeks. So we could go back and revisit the pricing for camps, because I think the mission of council and you, we want to keep kids off the streets during the summertime. And I think with that type of pricing, I don't know what demographics will be able to afford that price. So if we could look at that, maybe revisit it, of having a sliding scale or even free for our kids. I think the more we have kids busy in the summertime, the less we see them off the street. So thank you so much if we can make that happen.
That was an arts camp, right?
Yeah, they said it was doing a specialty arts camp.
So I think based on, be happy, first of all, to provide you with some follow-up on this particular camp. I know that there had been some discussion, and we can certainly, I think we have staff here this afternoon who are prepared to give you more background, or we can provide it to you as a follow-up.
And even if that is the camp, because I know growing up, I went to Doris Miller Camp for the summertime.
Yeah.
I think parents need to have a clear vision what there is to do, and maybe we can hand that out to the kids through the summertime, give them a handout, things to do in Newport News, have the Debbie section, the Southeast section. So we have to get with the Boys and Girls Club, what do they offer? We have Brooks Crossing, what do they offer? If it's down in Gross, what do they offer? So parents can kind of know what there is to do, and it's simple. It's not that you have to go around the block to try to figure out what your kids could do for the summertime. We pumping that information out immediately, letting parents, because I'm still getting phone calls, what is there for my child to do during the summertime?
And I think good point. I know I talked last year with communications. I think we've done a great job with the summer press conference. I think we've pushed out a lot of information. I think sort of the next steps. I know we have Cleater. I know we have the landing page. We have the website, correct?
And we also have that pamphlet.
Perfect.
Actually, I just looked at it today.
Gotcha. So I think the next steps is 100% agree with you, John. I think what we need to do as a council is maybe we start to film like the little promos and we start to go around. But I would love if we'd love to take charge of that.
Yeah, I think the main thing is we do a great job of getting out there, but the kids that live in my community, they're not on none of those
Channels
networks
and
channels.
Yeah.
We have to either do a mailer. I think the easiest, more effective way is let's partner with Huntington Middle School. Make sure every child have one of these. I think the school system is the best way, as well as sending it to the parents through Parent View. I hear parents talking all the time through Parent View, but the key is making sure the parents have the information. They're not looking at us on Newport News now. Not saying demographics. I'm just talking about a lot of the parents in my community that I've served. Like when I want to get stuff out for What's Next, me and my team go door to door, putting it on the doors because we want to ensure that people are seeing it. That's how we get 400, 600 per turnout. If we just put it on Newport News Now, we might not get that certain type of turnout.
No, 100%. I think meet the people where they are, and if it's the mailers or word of mouth, 100%. Listen, I call a town hall, I get 100. You call a town hall, you get 10,000. So no, you definitely have mastered the way of getting people. But no, I agree. I think there's different forms and mediums of communication, and we need to tailor it per district. And I think as I don't know if Marlon's in here, but as the data guy, I think we can actually see like how many people are taking a look at it. There's all things we can do with data. So agreed. We can find different ways to reach different people. Okay. Yep.
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything.
I just have 3 or 4 things. I'll start with the most important. So I had a call with Mayor Dwyer this morning. Both of our cities had violence this past weekend. This is for the city manager. I'm sure it's going to filter down to Mr. Freeman as well. I would like an audit of our city hall security procedures, number 1. Number 2, let's look at republishing whatever those procedures are. And Bo, I don't need like a red cell, but like let's like publish this thing. And the third thing is I want a drill done in the next 45 days for people who work in City Hall. That was something that Bobby D and I talked about this morning, and I think it's just important. I think it's the access to weapons is just too great, and there's a lot of openings in City Hall. And so I know that we have security and we do a good job, but this is top of mind for me. So let's make sure we audit, publish it, and have the drill within 45 days would be helpful. On a lighter note, I talked to the Chamber of Commerce president this morning. He's wanted me to remind everyone that Friday at 7:30, I believe, is the first of their State of the Military. I know Bo is going to be there. Jerry, I don't know if you can make it as well. If I could get one council member, Device could show up.
I told him I'd be there.
You told him?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I just, it's in our city. Just wanted, I'm unable to make it, so thank you for that. After this meeting, Tiffany will come by with our last CSAB, is the VSO, the orchestra. We're not going to rush it today, but let's make sure we just yes or no, so that way we can have the vote going into the next 2 weeks. And the last thing is just a thank you for everyone that was involved in our summer program. I guess I'll call it Splash. To Councilman Vic, I think you did a great job with all of the interviews, but I know there was a lot of time and efforts. I know Tiffany was working behind the scenes, Brent and Cleater and Kim and Alan. And so I think it was a great job, not for the city, but people just didn't realize how much was being done from all of our stakeholders, because when you look at the rate of youth violence, it's not just the city. Like we can't control that. It's families, it's your churches, your nonprofits, your corporate citizens. And I think post State of the City, everyone asked like, oh, I would love to get involved. Well, we have like eight ways you can get involved. So a lot of work behind the scenes, but thank you for that. I really appreciate it. We need anything, or can we go into closed session?
I have one question.
Yes.
I just want, with the chambers being renovated soon.
Yes.
Is there an interest in an electronic voting system being implemented?
Yeah, I think, we're going to take care of that. I think Tiffany has the electronic stuff. We'll take care of it. We'll do that. Good? Yes. Good. Good.
All right.
Leon, let's do it.
Yeah, I move that pursuant to section 2.2 3711A of the Code of Virginia 1950 is amended, subsection 5, the council hold a closed meeting for purpose of 5, a discussion of prospective business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding a facility in the community, subject of which is the prospective expansion of a business in the central section of the city and the prospective expansion of a business in the southern section of the city.
Second.
Second, please call the roll.
Mayor Jones.
4.
Councilman Long.
4.
Councilwoman Vick.
4.
Councilwoman Woodbury.
4.
Vice Mayor Bethany.
4.
Councilman Ely.
4.
Councilman Harris.
4.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you, everyone.
The members of council certified that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters are lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion for which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting by the council.
Second.
Who seconded? Please call the roll.
Mayor Jones.
4.
Councilman Long.
4.
Councilwoman Vick.
4.
Councilwoman Woodbury. Vice Mayor Bethany.
4.
Councilman Ely.
4.
Councilman Harris.
4.
Motion carried, 7-0.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.